It seems that there was a Quaker farmer who could not get his mule to move, no matter how he cajoled, pulled, or pushed. And finally, he looked the mule straight in the eye and addressed him by name. "Josiah," he said, "thee knows I shall never curse thee, and thee knows I shall never strike thee. But if thee doesn't start moving this very instant, I shall sell thee to a Baptist who will." And the mule began to move immediately. See, I can say that, being a former Baptist. Okay. All right, so today is Satyagraha Day, and I really love to talk about this topic as here we are in the midst of the season for peace and nonviolence, and this is our Sunday to really talk about Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi was also given the holy name of Mahatma Gandhi. And, Gandhi taught and demonstrated the power of love and nonviolence to change the hearts, minds, and actions of quote-unquote adversaries and change the course of history. And I want to tell you just a little bit about Gandhi. I could do a whole talk on just his background and his life, because if you viewed the movie, the 3-hour movie that was just so powerful, you've probably heard, that he dealt with his own experiences of adversity and discrimination. But I'm just going to give you just a brief overview so we can really get to the heart of the Satyagraha principle. But Gandhi was born in 1869 in West India, and he studied law in London, but in 1893 went to South Africa, where he spent 20 years opposing discriminatory legislation against Indians. And in his own country, he sought to alleviate poverty, liberate women, put an end to caste discrimination, and freedom from British rule. He was a pioneer of non-resistance through mass, nonviolent civil disobedience. Gandhi led India to independence from British rule and inspired movements for nonviolence, civil rights, and freedom across the world. He became one of the major political and spiritual leaders of his time, of all time. He was able to accomplish what he did through the philosophies of Satyagraha and Ahimsa. So Satyagraha literally means hold unto the truth. Satya is Sanskrit for truth, and agraha is used to describe an effort, an endeavor. The term itself means any effort to discover, discern, or obtain, or apply truth. But Satyagraha is also called truth force. And because Gandhi associated truth with love, Satyagraha is also translated to mean the force of love. And ahimsa is the foundation of Satyagraha and can be translated as nonviolence. But the meaning goes beyond that. Ahimsa is derived from the Sanskrit verb root hims, which means desirous to kill, and the prefix a is negation. So ahimsa means literally lacking any desire to kill, and this is central to Hindu morality. The Hindu book of law says that ahimsa is the highest law. Ahimsa is nonviolence with the strength of will. And so in unity, we talk about our power of strength and will. So this is nonviolence rooted in our powers of willingness and strength. Ahimsa means kindness and nonviolence toward all living things, including animals. It respects living beings and holds that all living things are connected. Avoidance of verbal and physical violence is a big part of this principle. Violence is ultimately disruptive in its consequences. Ahimsa is invincible. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, Gandhi was probably the first person in history to lift the love ethic of Jesus above more interaction between individuals to a powerful and effective social force on a large scale. Because we remember that Jesus invited us to love one another. And if you recall the context of that invitation, it did not put conditions around that love. It didn't say, love one another if you agree with each other, politically or otherwise. Love one another no matter what. So, Gandhi's philosophy of Satyagraha is standing in the truth of love, grounded in nonviolence. Grounded in nonviolence. Well, what does nonviolence mean? See, the thing is, I think that I'm so stirred by the news and what we see on the news right now with violence in the political arena. And so I think that we can look at the news and say, that's violence. That's violence. But the thing is, I know for myself that I express violence when I say really ugly things behind the wheel of my car on 495. I know you would never think that of a minister, right? I'm kidding. Or just have an attitude that's not kind, or there's lots of ways, folks, that we can be violent. And I know that we're all good people, and I think it's an opportunity for us to take just a look at, especially when someone triggers you, and you know what I mean by that. When someone pulls your chain, how do you respond? Or in other words, how do you react? And so the opportunity that we have as we look at this principle of Satyagraha is what is ours to do when we are in the world and violence comes at us, whatever that is. How can we respond standing in the truth of love nonviolently? And there is a teaching that was the most powerful class I took in ministerial school. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, but I really want to presence it. And I could talk about it for a whole month. It's nonviolent communication. And Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life, is a book that was written by Marshall Rosenberg. Hint, hint, we have several copies in our bookstore. It's the most powerful tool that I've ever seen to be nonviolent in my communication. You know, I think a lot of times when we are faced with a situation, it's what do we say? Yes, our actions, absolutely. And then there's those opportunities when you know that in order to clear something up with someone, you're going to have a difficult conversation. How many of us love difficult conversations? I get it. So most of us do not like difficult conversations. In fact, we tend to be avoidant, right? Okay, discuss. It's really okay. You don't have to raise your hand on that. So nonviolent communication is a way to be with someone. And so I just want to briefly go through the steps of that. And if you're interested in knowing more about it, I recommend buying the book. And also, there's a course that's going to happen here. I'm going to do a little commercial, Maureen, on July 30th and 31st called Be Peace. That is grounded in heart math and nonviolent communication. And so please put that on your calendar to come. It is, I know it will be life-changing. So I wanted to just run through the steps of nonviolent communication with you, just to give you an overall view of it, because it is a teaching that will support you in most areas of your life, with your children, with your spouse, with your friends, and in the workplace. So, all right, so scenario, someone hurts you. Someone says something icky to you, and you just feel yourself, whatever you do. If you freeze, if you want to lash out, whatever your pattern is, you know what that is. All right, so breathe. The breath is really important. And the thing that I think that we tend to not do is we tend to not go direct. We tend to want to go talk to our friend, and under sometimes the auspice of processing, I need to process this. But really what it is a way to avoid going direct. And so, yes, I think there are friends and people that we can process things with, but I think the intention always of that processing is to clear it, okay? And so the first step in nonviolent communication is to go direct to the person. And when you go direct, you come standing in love with a commitment to be nonviolent, with love in your heart. Nonviolent communication is really about getting your needs met. Because typically when someone has hurt us, we're not getting a need met, right? So what would it be like if we wanted to know what their needs were? So the first step in nonviolent communication is to observe what happened and to express what happened as best you can without your interpretation. So if someone comes up to you and says, wow, Sheryl, you're a really stinky singer, okay, then I'm like, okay, then I could say, all right, when you said that to me, when you came up to me and said what you said to me, the next step is, how did I feel? How do you feel? I felt hurt. See, there's not a lot of language around feelings in our culture. We think if we say, I feel like you don't like me, that's not a feeling. What's the feeling underneath that? So nonviolent communication gives you a language to identify how you're feeling. So the first step is say what happened without interpretation. Really the first step. I add a step, go direct. But say what happened, go directly to that person and say, this is what happened, and this is how I felt about it, and this is what I need. You know, as human beings, we have needs. We need to feel safe. We need to belong. We need to feel love. We need to be heard. We need respect. We need honesty. Those are some of the needs that we need. What is it that you need? The fourth step is, what's a request? What is your request of this person? A quick way to remember this whole process is observe, feel, need, request. Because that final step is if you can make a request, I request that if you have feedback that you tell me in private, or whatever it is, whatever the situation is, you can make a request of someone. And then they can say whether they can meet it or not. And then if they say no, then you come back around. The whole point of this communication style is for us to be in dialogue with each other, standing in love with a commitment to be nonviolent. Do you see? It's one of many tools, and you don't have to do it perfectly. Really, if you don't remember any of those steps, what you get to remember is that if someone has hurt you, if you are mad at someone, that you go to that person directly with love in your heart and say, this is what happened and this is how I felt. Can we work it out? I love you. Yeah. That is Satyagraha. So, there's a lot more I could say. I have many more stories, but here we are, and it's been a full Sunday. But I'm trusting that this is enough for today, that you leave here today just knowing the basic premise of Satyagraha. That if we leave here today, folks, and when we see the news, when we're sitting in our living room, you can take a stand while seated. Stand in your love. Stand in your knowing. Don't respond with violence like other people are responding right now. Respond from the love and the peace that is your heart, like we did in meditation. That, folks, will change not only your life, but it will change the world. It really will. So will we practice this week? And I really, truly invite you to explore Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It is a beautiful work, and to come join us on July 30th and 31st for the Be Peace Conference here today that Maureen Hilton and Ellen will lead. Thank you so much, you two. All right, so let's affirm together. Satyagraha is how I speak and live. And so it is. And so it is.